This is an Efficiency is Everything topic review on food. So typically we do 1 to 3 minute article summaries. Well, this is supposed to be everything I've learned about food over the last 7 or 8 years. So I'll kind of go in order of how I kind of grew with this. And I'll get started with college. So when I was in college and I was taking my chem engineering degree, I was in analytical chemistry, and we had like a 3 or 4 hour sort of waiting period as we waited for whatever lab we were doing to dry. And we'd go to McDonald's. Now, knowing stoichiometry, what I would do is I would take the calories and I would divide by the dollars to get this unit called calories per dollar. And this would be the lowest cost ways of getting calories when I was at McDonald's. And I believe at the time you can spend, I think it was like $1, maybe it was $2 to get like a large McDonald's fries, and I think it was like 800 calories. But whatever the case, I think it was like 440 calories per dollar. Whatever the case, that was what I did in college. Now, I didn't really get serious about this until my wife got accepted into physical therapy school. That was going to be about a $100,000 expense. So I looked at kind of our bills. I didn't really know how much we were spending on things back then, and looked at our food budget, and we didn't really have one. So that got us down the rabbit hole of calories per dollar and then protein per dollar. And the findings of that we still use to this day. So some low-cost calories are flour, bread, oats, noodles, rice, even some oils. Yeah, you can get some low-cost oils. But those are some high calorie per dollar foods, and then some high protein per dollar foods, lentils, beans. You can get cheap protein per dollar. You can get sometimes milk really cheap. But even if you can't get milk cheap, it's still pretty low cost and pretty high protein per dollar. Chicken and eggs with coronavirus economy, maybe those are a bit more expensive now. But that and pork are relatively low cost meats. And then beef is, like ground beef is a little bit more expensive. And then after that, you're really getting into expensive cuts of meat. You're talking about things that are in the, $5 or $6 a pound, and those are definitely not efficient protein per dollar. So using that, I added a vegetable just because it seemed right to have a vegetable. I think we can all agree with that. And I knew canned vegetables weren't very cheap, so I picked, pick one low-cost high calorie per dollar item, pick one low-cost protein per dollar item, and then pick some sort of like frozen vegetable and some spices. That was the general recipe that we would follow. And to this day, we still use that. We probably eat maybe 1 or 2 of those recipes a week. And if you ate like that, at least pre-coronavirus, those were about $1,000 a year per person to live if you ate those kind of relatively high calorie per dollar and high protein per dollar foods with those vegetables. So that's very easy to live. That's very open. Now, we got more in depth, and we started studying nutrition per dollar. So those are vitamin A per dollar, calcium per dollar, etc. I think we'd end up doing like 30 of them. Some people debate whether all 30 of those are actually essential. I just use the U.S. government's recommended allowance. So this data is only as good as the U.S. government's recommended allowance. So with nutrition per dollar, I'm not going to get into what the highest calcium per dollar item was. I highly recommend checking out the website. Once you see the big chart of like 30 different nutrients per dollar, it's very cool. And I've even personally used it. I think I was low on magnesium or something. I was running and maybe sweat too much. Anyway, I was having like the twitching or something of magnesium. I really wish I could remember what it was. But whatever the case, I looked up in my own chart some high, say, magnesium per dollar food, bought it at the grocery store and had it, and then the twitching stopped or whatever. So just to give you an idea, maybe a potential use for it if you're looking for something specific, or you just kind of want to know what foods are high in nutrition per dollar. Some of it's pretty guessable, like kale is pretty high, lettuce is pretty high, but some of it may be more surprising, like flour, and that's likely because flour is fortified. So that was the next progression, nutrition per dollar. And before I get into the final results of nutrition per dollar, we did a design of experiment on that. Actually, is that right? No, it's not a design of experiment. It's linear algebra minimized for value. Sorry, I get design experiment confused. That design experiment was one of the first things I did when I was an industrial engineer at my job. So it comes back to me. Anyway, what I want to mention is how to save money when you're buying fast food or eating at a restaurant. So when you go to a fast food restaurant, look for loss leaders. Now, there's two kind of sales you can kind of see. If you see Taco Bell has like a $1 burrito, that's typically a loss leader. They're rounding down to $1 and really showing off that this is only $1. So that's a good sign you're going to get something that's relatively high calorie per dollar. Now, however, you might run into a sale where something is, an $8 box where you get a drink and fries and something else. That is not, that's not a deal. And you can always calculate these. If you're not sure, you can just simply do the calories divided by the cost of the item. And if it's above, let's say 300 calories per dollar, maybe even in this economy like 250 calories per dollar, that's okay for a restaurant. I mean, I personally try to aim for somewhere between like 600 and 700 calories per dollar when I eat at home. So giving you an idea, at a restaurant, if you can hit 400 calories per dollar, good job. Anyway, so finally, what we've all been waiting for is the conclusion of nutrition per dollar. So we used linear algebra and solved to hit all of the nutrients you need for the lowest cost. And for a typical person, the items you would eat are milk, flour, eggs, kale, potatoes, carrots, and pinto beans. And if you ate those foods in the right proportion, you can eat perfectly healthy for about $1.50 a day. And we've done it. It's kind of time consuming because you have to make a lot of items out of flour. And I mean, even to this day, we love some of those recipes. I mean, homemade noodles, Yankee. I mean, the food is really good. You just have to spend like a half hour making it. So I would say we spend probably half of our meals eating like this. We'll spend another like 1 or 2 meals a week eating that $1,000 a year. My wife likes some of the recipes. And then I spend a few extra meals per week experimenting for the website and doing some speed cooking. We'll get into that later. Anyway, if you do have some sort of dietary restrictions, I have some alternatives. So for vegans, came up with cereal as something to eat, but I think cereal can be swapped out for flour. So cereal or flour, romaine lettuce, kale, pinto beans. Now, the amount of pinto beans it had was excessive. I really have to look into the fiber on that. Maybe something's going on with the soluble versus insoluble that's not being tracked. Cabbage, collard greens. So if you're vegan, those were the foods it said. I think you could eat for, I think it was like $3 or $4 a day. And then for people eating keto, it was said to eat like 1,300 calories of eggs, romaine lettuce, chicken breast, spinach, peanuts, cheese, and a little bit of corn oil. I mean, it was like fractions of a penny of corn oil. And then for gluten-free, it said potatoes, specifically russet potatoes, eggs, milk, pinto beans, and then a fraction of curly parsley and corn oil. So just give you an idea on what the calculator found were the lowest cost foods, and see what you guys can do to apply these. I mean, we ate as low as $500 or $600 a year per person, and you could see it in our grocery bills. We were leaving the grocery store with $20 grocery bills for, I think there was 3 family members when we were really hardcore doing it every day of the week. And then even if you're not as hardcore, find the loss leaders or eat some of the high calorie, high protein per dollar items. Even just adding a few of these will save you money. And it might be, let's say, $10 a month, and that'll add up to hundreds of dollars a year. So anyway, I hope you like this. If you like the format, you want to see more of these longer form, definitely leave a comment. If you have questions on food, now this is what I really like. You could get me talking all day about food. So if you have questions, you want to know maybe what you would be eating if you couldn't have milk. I have that data ready, and I really should post on the website. So go ahead and ask your question. I can use my calculator. It's very simple. Give me, a few hours, and I can return you a result.